Mr. Michael Knowles, the host of the Michael Knowles Show at the Daily Wire, a very funny guy, very smart guy, accomplished writer, I could say writer, kind of like that when I say he was the author of the number one best-selling book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats. If you don't know why I say writer,
it was very thorough.
You should go and look that book up. Welcome to the program, Michael Knowles. How are you?
Glenn, thank you for having me, and thank you for your very, very generous definition of the word writer.
So, Michael, first of all, how have you been? I haven't talked to you in a while. It's good to hear from you.
It's good to hear from you, Glenn. I've been doing well, and I have been on my YAF, Young America's Foundation, lecture tour, which is the Men Are Not Women and Other Uncomfortable Truths lecture tour. And I have never seen a basic biological reality meet such protests. I actually found myself, I was an assignment in a gender studies class called Sex and Love, two of my favorite subjects, by the way, actually assigned the students a protest against my speech, not to come see my speech, but to protest the speech. So it's been a pretty wild few weeks.
You know, it's really weird. When I was in school, you would get extra credit by watching something or going someplace, listening it, and then having a conversation or writing a paper on it. We just cut right to the chase. Don't even listen, just protest.
This must have been 100 years ago. I think now the universities have completely flipped this on its head, because there was a protester at this speech who, on camera, you can see it on YouTube, said the reason we're protesting is because this speech is literally violence. And so, that was my reaction to you. I said, back in the way back days when I was in college just a few years ago, you would get extra credit if you went and listened to a lecture. Now you're getting credit for protesting a lecture. The way that they've done it is because they can't refute any sort of conservative argument. The only way that they can fight back against our arguments is to censor us, to shut us down, to protest us. And the best way that they can do that is to equate our speech with violence, because it then justifies their own violence in return.
That is absolutely crazy. So where were you? I saw a video, I think it came Monday, and you were giving your talk, and outside was this class. Let's roll some of the video.
We will not allow hate on our campus.
They won't allow hate.
The university has a duty to protect marginalized people and the right for everyone to feel safe at school and be treated with dignity. Yes, ma'am. The school up to now has not acted to protect transgender people on campus. Hateful rhetoric against trans and gender non-conforming people leads to high rates of suicide and trans people being harassed and killed, with trans women of color dying at an alarming rate due to the intersections of racism and transphobia.
Okay, stop. So this was not exactly, it was seemingly kind of well attended. Must have been maybe, 50 or 75 people there. But they weren't really, it wasn't an exciting rally. And some of the points they're making, like the high rate of transgender being killed, we looked it up, and in a 3-year period, there were only 3 people that were transgender that were murdered because they were transgendered.
And that all 3 of them involved the surprise that apparently hits some people when they believe they're about to hook up with a woman and it maybe is not a woman.
Right.
That was the cause of 3.
And when you say hook up,
it was
you're painting. It
was sex work. Yes,
it's a sex worker. Mm-hmm. So you don't run into the best class of Johns, all the time,
perusing the boulevard.
Right.
Of course, they totally manipulate the statistics, and it's all for this emotional manipulation. What's funny is the tour, it takes its title from the speech that I gave, Men Are Not Women, where I first was very protested and actually physically assaulted too. But there are these other uncomfortable truths. And the 2 that I've been giving, the video you saw and the clip you played was at Kennesaw State in Georgia, and then I was at University of Florida last night. And the two other uncomfortable truths were that the mainstream media are fake news, that you're being fed a bill of goods from leftist propagandists, much like we heard in that clip. And then the next one I thought was more important, which is that leftism is not compassionate. And what they're saying is that if we state very basic biological realities, that's actually cruel, it's leading to murder, and it's leading to suicide. And none of the statistics back that up at all. But what they want to do is portray reality as cruel and portray fantasy as compassionate. And of course, that simply isn't true.
So, Michael, what's the reaction on campuses? Because I'm starting to see videos where there are thousands of people that are turning out positively for conservative, and I can't even say conservative, just science facts.
Yeah. There are many, many multiples more people who were turning out to these lectures to engage in a productive way. You know, I was at the University of Florida last night. There were hundreds of people there, and it wasn't all conservative students. Many were moderates, and a few of them were left-wing. And some of the left-wingers got up there and asked questions in a mostly respectful way, and it was really productive, and it's sort of what the university is supposed to do, is to foster dialogue, and everybody can leave hopefully having learned something. I think we've reached a tipping point with these censors, with these people who are going to try to shut us down. You know, they tell you that anybody to the right of Hillary Clinton is a fascist and a bigot and a Nazi and a murderer, and I just think nobody really believes it, and they've simply gone too far. And at this point, if you are going to protest a basic fact, you know, men are not women, you might as well protest the idea that 2 + 2 = 4. I think the vast, vast majority of people know that the censors have lost the narrative, and they're not going to take it anymore. They're going to turn out, and they're not going to be robbed of their university experience.
Well, here's what's weird. I agree with you. I think people who are independent, I think a lot of Democrats and conservatives, they know all of this. I really think most people are like, come on, man. I don't want to hate people. I don't hate people. You want to do this with your life and your own body, that's fine. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm not you. So go ahead and do whatever it is that you want to do. But don't do it to kids, you know?
Right.
And I think that's where most people are. The problem is, as we are starting to say, this is crazy, and I think on all fronts, this is crazy. We have to have a conversation about this. They have institutionalized, not just in the schools, but they've institutionalized it in our government. When you have a 7-year-old in a Texas court being told that his mother can basically sterilize him and turn him into a woman, when, you know, forget it. Even if that 7-year-old says, yeah, I'm Carol Channing, you don't do that to a 7-year-old. But here in Texas, that is happening. I mean, if it's happening in Texas, good heavens, what's happening in California and New York?
I think people are seeing this. I mean, I was shocked myself when I saw the Texas decision, and very little shocks me these days. I am in the news 24/7, and I couldn't believe it because the problem runs so much deeper than we thought. You know, when you see the people with the crazy hair and they're yelling and screaming and they're all upset because of their leftist politics, it's easy to write that off and say, okay, these are just fringe lunatic people and the vast majority are normal. But when you have this institutionalized, not just in the judiciary, but in the judiciary in conservative places, you realize how deep the rot runs. I think this is why these conservative campus lecture series and these actually independent campus lecture series and the protests they meet are so important too, because it shows you how deep the rot runs, even at elite universities. You know, there was a study out of ISI. It showed that graduating seniors at elite universities know less about their history and their government and their politics than incoming freshmen. This is a really, really deep problem, and it's going to take a lot more than 1 or 2 elections or 1 or 2 decisions to turn it around.